Today in Northern Revolutions, I got a special guest. I'll be joined by my buddy, your buddy, everybody's buddy, concert buddy. He and I are going to be talking about vinyl gambles, those vinyl purchases that we missed out on and regret, and maybe those ones we took a flyer on that really paid off. So stay tuned. All right, everybody, welcome to Northern Revolutions. I'm joined by my good buddy, concert buddy. We're here to have a conversation today, kind of a continuation of a conversation that appeared on the Vinyl Community podcast a week or so ago. Chance and I were talking about vinyl regrets or regrets, things that we have seen out in the wild, perhaps, and not taken a gamble on and maybe regret it, or practices that we now regret. And that kind of got me thinking that, you know, there are many more of those stories, and there's also other positive vinyl gambles, I would call them, things that, maybe we took a flyer on and exceeded our expectations in one way or another. So I invited Chance back that we would continue on the discussion, because I think I had the impression we sort of just scratched the surface of some of those great stories that is what makes record collecting one of the fun hobbies it is. So welcome, concert buddy.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be back. And yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. I think we put our toes in that bathwater, and I think there's a lot more stories and a lot more sharing that we can mine from this.
For sure. We won't rehash the stories that we did before for those folks that want to check them out.
No repeat weekend.
That's right. Exactly. No reruns on here.
That's
so
right.
If you want to check them out, you can check out the video on Chance's channel, or you can check out the previous episode on the Vinyl Community podcast. But I thought we would continue on with what I'm tentatively calling vinyl gambles. So whether they're hits or misses.
You decide.
That's right. You be the judge, folks. Do you want to go first, or you want me to go first, or?
Oh, well, I mean, if you're giving me the dance floor first, Rob, I'll go for it.
Well, you're the guest, man, so set the bar high.
Yeah, so talking about gambles or things in hindsight that we're glad we did. So let's go back a couple years. I didn't really own any box sets, right? I just thought it took up a lot of space on the shelf. Who needs that many records? It's in the set, just a hassle, right?
And they're expensive.
And yep, to the words right out of my mouth, and they're expensive. So I was really box set averse. And then the universe put the Ozzy Osbourne box set. It's See You on the Other Side box set together. And I had a lot of Ozzy records. I had the ones that were in print. I didn't have No More Tears because that was kind of a pricier one, even though it kind of sounds like ass because it's, it's on one disc and, it doesn't have room to breathe. It's, typical 90s, really compressed, recording. So here comes See You on the Other Side, the box set. And they put that little carrot like they do. And they're like, first time on vinyl. And it was like 3 or 4 different albums that his first time on vinyl. And so I was like, okay, so now I'm interested. What I wasn't interested in is the price tag. I think it was $500.
Oof.
But then they knew this. Sharon Osbourne, very good businesswoman.
She's shrewd,
but she gets the job done. And this has nothing to do with the View or political view. This is just talking straight up Ozzy's manager. So $500, and then they threw in the kicker, which was this certificate of authenticity signed by Ozzy himself. So $500. I'm like, wow. So I had to muscle up, save my concert buddy coins for a hot minute, and I bought one. First one I got came, and it had like the box had splits on it. So I was already like,
Oh
"God,
no.
you gotta be kidding me." So I was like, this is going to be either a return or, and they said, of course, limited edition. It was with all the marketing jargon that you want, limited edition. Once it's gone, on it. So I wrote,
They put the worm on the hook and you bit it.
oh, I bet it hook, line, and sinker. So then I get this box that's got splits on the end, and I'm like, I'm sad face because I'm thinking either I'm gonna have to return it in full or I'm gonna have to live with this. I even took, like I just did that video about split seams and using a marker, hillbilly Jim style. I even did that on the box, and of course it was a matte finish, so it just looked like complete trash. Wrote the manufacturer. I think it was it Sony? Yeah, I think it was Sony. And to their credit, they sent me an empty box replacement. Perfect. So and it working out. Okay. I think I even sold the crap box on eBay for like $30. So I actually, talk about $500, got $30 back. Anyway, it's a long-winded way of saying I got the box set. We're all good. COA, happy with it. Now, so again, keep in mind it was $500, and I was like, wow, I just don't know if I wanted to do it. Ended up doing it. Now this thing's going in excess of $2,000. And blows my mind. And even some collector friends of mine don't have it because they were like me. They're like, man, $500. A lot of the hesitation marks. And now my biggest, I guess that's a win, but also going to be a regret because I wish I would have bought another one. To speculate, right? Because then it would have been a nice it's so a $500 investment, sit on it for call it 2 years. And I think it really took off during the COVID because I think this came out right before COVID. Let's call it 2019. So right before COVID, then everybody's home, then everybody's really doubling down on vinyl or getting into it. And that's when I noticed it started going north of 1,000, 1,500. And I think now it's like $2,000. So anyway, big win there.
Big win. Oh, that's good, man. That's good. I'm going to start with a win as well. Cool. I'm going to start with my Holy Grail. I've been a record collector since I was, 14, maybe 12, something like that. When I was getting into music, which would be the early 90s, through my dad, osmosis, as most of us do. And while I bought CDs, I was always buying vinyl, and through the 90s and 2000s when no one else was. And like a lot of people, my gateway was the Beatles, and my Holy Grail of everything was always the Butcher cover, as it is for many Beatles collectors. I had never seen one. I never thought that I was ever going to get to own one. And this isn't necessarily a gamble, but I would consider it a big win. I one day was looking on eBay, excuse me, and some guy had a third state mono, which for the folks that don't know, it's third state means it had a slick on it and someone had peeled it. And it wasn't a great peel job, but you could see it clearly what it was. It was in kind of rough shape. And at the time, it was somewhere around, I think it was about $125, something like that. This was about 8 years ago.
So that's still a big pill to swallow at that point.
Right? I mean, at that time, I'm like, maybe this was 10 years ago. Anyway.
Well, before that, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So how did you learn? I mean, obviously you know the Beatles. How did you learn the mythology behind the Butcher cover?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm such a Beatles nerd that, I'm that guy that knows about, I'm in Canada, so I'm familiar with all the Canadian pressings and how they're different than the American and how they're different from the UK. I mean, I think maybe the first time I heard about it was during the Beatles anthology documentaries probably. And I've got many books and whatever. And back when I was in my early 20s, a girl that I was dating, her dad was a huge Beatles nut. And he allegedly had one, but I never saw it. It was in the safety deposit box. I never saw it. And so I think the mythology had just sort of built in my head over time, and I have to have it. And I had never seen one in the wild before.
Got
it. So I saw this one on eBay with full understanding of what I was getting. It's a peeled Butcher that wasn't very well peeled. It was in rough shape. I'm not going to play it, so what do I care, right?
Sure,
I wanted to own that artifact. But I'm like, $125 on a record. That's a lot of money for one single record.
Yeah.
I mean, even now, that's still a fair amount to pay for a record. So, you know what? Damn it. I'm just going to do it. And it was an auction, but it had like a buy it now or make an offer or whatever.
Okay.
And so I offered him like, $10 above what his asking was, and he took it right away. I'm like, whew. So I bought it for $130 ish, and it showed up, and this is it here. For those that are watching on YouTube, you can see what it looks like. It is not a great peel,
sure,
but you clearly understand what it is, and it's the genuine artifact. So, not a gamble insofar as should I or shouldn't I? Obviously, it was, damn it, I'm buying this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a huge win that, yeah, it's beat up, but even in this condition, these things are expensive as hell nowadays.
Yes.
I mean, even for peeled covers, people have been known to pay like $1,000, which is insane. The ones that are in great condition are multiple thousands of dollars.
That's true.
Go,
yep.
That is nuts. I don't really care what it's worth. I'm not into records for the
speculation.
Uh-huh. It's purely the love of the music and the hobby itself. But if I didn't jump on it back then, I wouldn't own one now, because there's no way in hell I would drop $1,000 on a record, because I'd be living out on the street. My wife would kick my ass up, right? So, not a gamble, but absolutely a big win. I'm glad that I dropped $130 on a record 10 years ago that nowadays I wouldn't be able to afford. So.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because it's kind of a point that I think about, you probably think about, and other folks probably think about, is do it now or do it later. And I think that didn't always used to be the case 5-10 years ago, because odds are it would come back around some way. And I know Jason Rojas, some of you guys know probably on YouTube, he says it all the time. He's like, that record that you're looking for will come to you at the right time. You just got to be patient. And I think there's a lot to that. However, I think there's some records I've been waiting for since I found Discogs 10 years ago that I've never seen in the wild, that I've realized the only way to acquire them is through online marketplaces, right? It's just a reality of it.
Yep.
And I think you kind of hit on a really like top of mind thing for record collecting today is, if it's there, do I or don't I? And if I don't, will I see it again? Will I see it again in the same price? FOMO, and sometimes, like that's the gamble. That's the snake eyes, because if you pass it, then you're going to think about it. It's like the girl that got away, I mean, it's true, but there have been a lot of those. Fortunately, I've been able to circle around back on most of those, but I've had to have what it's, I want to call it a regret, but I did put it in my kind of consciousness of what I'll call the miss out tax. Right. Yep. And I I'll show you this record right now. So, along those lines. So this record is a reissue. This is Bill Evans' You Must Believe in Spring. Mm-hmm. Originals are very expensive, and I'm the last person that should be telling anybody what jazz records to buy. However, I know about Bill Evans. I like some of his catalog. This was reissued this year. Okay. So I think it was in June, this came out by Kraft. So it's 2 discs, 45 RPM. And I didn't really think anything of it, because I don't know the full Bill Evans discography, right? Because I'm still relatively finding my way in jazz. So I think I saw it recently. I think I've been Bob Bradley. Somebody featured it on a video. And that's how, I'm sure like you, that's how you kind of learn about different things.
Absolutely.
That you might have missed, right? YouTube, read the message boards, whatever.
Yep.
So when that came out, I think it was a $30 or $40, release. So now I've decided I want to get it. Of course, can't find it anywhere. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. Bob Bradley knows jazz, or whoever it was. I trusted their opinion. So now I've got to go find it. Sold out everywhere. New copies sold out. I mean, I did my Google. I did all my record stores online. I've actually found a copy at a record store, a used copy that was now $60. So you're talking about, $20 more than I could have paid 6 to 8 months ago. And again, it's $20. $20 is $20. Plus I've got to pay the shipping and whatever. So those kind of things happen more often than not. And I think that's a product of our post our current COVID, post-COVID environment with supply chain challenges, with capacity challenges, all those things, because when those things come in, they go out. And again, it might have sold out in like a month, 3 months. I don't know. But since it wasn't on my radar then, 5-10 years ago, that wasn't a big deal because you could probably track down a copy still at MSRP. Now, I mean, you got to pay this miss out tax, which is very similar to what I call the death tax, right? Like when an artist dies.
Yep.
And I've been on both sides of that one. I've raced out to try to get the records, and people have already jacked the prices up. Or I hate to say it, it makes me sound like a dirtbag, but there are records that I had for sale that I was like, hey, now's the time to get off of them because such and such died, and it is what it is, right? So
Yep. Well, it's commercialism, right? Whether we like it or not, it's part of the hobby.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, and they're, yeah, it's nothing that you, I, or the coalition of the willing can do. It's just one of those variables that, what is it? Chad Cass and buy now or cry later. And there's been that's been good practice in a lot of cases. Again, I've been on the opposite side of buying something that I was kind of on the fence about, and I'm glad I did because it's not back in print, or it's not going to be reissued, or the tapes were lost or whatever. But I've also been on that other side where, like I was just saying, like, again, something I didn't know about, found out about it less than a year later, and good luck trying to track one down. Oh, wait, you did, and now you got to pay the miss out tax. And
yeah, I love that miss out tax. That's a very valid
copyright, patent, and copyright pending. So
fair enough. If I ever use it in a video, I'll give you a copyright notice at the bottom.
It'll be that'll pay me more than these apparent copyright YouTube payments that I'll maybe one day get that I always hear about. Right?
They're mythical, right? I think those things are
the
like
unicorns. Yeah, like a penny a video or whatever it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Good luck.
Exactly. Do you have any? You get those are. I think we both had a couple of nice wins there. You got any that still sting a little bit?
That sting. There's one. This doesn't sting, but it just this is my latest infatuation. I'd say latest. It's been one I've been looking for. So I think 2009. There was a band actually, and I'm trying to tell too much of the story. I used to work with a guy. Let me go this way. First job out of college, I worked at a place. I worked with an aspiring musician. We actually both went to our next jobs together. The company was downsized, and we actually moved to another company together, a whole bunch of us. So working with two places. He ends up quitting the job and just goes all in, doubles down being a musician, right? So I don't hear anything for a couple of years from this guy. And then next thing I know, he's resurfaced with this rock band who I knew of from like alternative radio called Hurt. Are you familiar with like their big hits? Like 10 Ton Brick is like their big single, right?
Yeah.
So they had already had that single by the time this friend of mine had joined the band. So I heard he joined, and heard, as the whole rock and roll story was he basically booked a one-way ticket to LA. It was make it or break it. He was auditioning for the bass player gig. He got it. Okay. So then now they're coming through our town. And so I'm like, great. I go see him, all that stuff. Anyway, fast forward to, I'm now really into record collecting. And I find out this album of theirs that I got on CD back when it came out, 2009, I think it was. It's on vinyl. Great. Okay. So I've missed the release 2009. So now this is about 2014, 15. I'd like it on vinyl. Okay. Again, very similar to this miss out tax we were just talking about. So I go on Discogs and never pops up. And even to this day, 2023, rarely pops up. Maybe once, twice, 3 times a year. And of course, it's now it's like $300, right? And again, price is a consideration, but it's not the ultimate consideration.
Right.
Bless, I guess. But to that end, the time spent looking, monitoring, waiting for the latest Discogs update, all that kind of stuff, right? So this one's been on my list for years, and it's been at the top for years. And I even went to, and maybe you've done this, or maybe folks watching or listening have done this. If you go on Discogs, the people who have it, who have cataloged it, you can, I hate to say it, cold call.
Yep.
But you can email them. And I've done that. Actually, it worked for me on another record. So I was like, okay, it worked before. So I just started emailing people. Hey, really trying to track down this record. And I got real close. There was one person who was real close who was like, yeah, I don't listen to it. And I was like, all right, I got it. And then they backed off and they said, yeah, hit me up. So they said, hit me up some other time and see if I changed my mind. A year later, I mean, this is how I've been trying to track this down. A year later, I followed up on that lead, like a tenacious,
Sure.
salesman or, whatever.
Yeah.
I followed up on it and I was like, hey man, it's been a year. Any different? And he's like, nah, I think I'm going to hold on to it for the long term. So that's a tough one, because I think the last one that came up that I could have bought was maybe early last year, and it was $330, autographed by the band. And usually when higher price point stuff, unless I know I've got it snap on it, which I guess I should have snapped on that now. I'll give it like a night. I'll give it the overnight thing. Like, okay, it's there in the morning. That's the universe's way. I mean, this is the sickness, right? It's just like
the record gods saying, chance it's okay.
That's my point, right? It's like, like you just take a couple months off from buying records. You can afford, it'll work out. Of course, it was gone. By the morning, it was gone. I think it probably sold as soon as I logged off my computer that night. So that one has been kind of evading me for the longest time. Actually, I'm going to give everyone the title. So if you want to find it for me or extort me, one or the other, just let me know. I should know the title because I have it. Actually, I found a CD of it recently because I'd gotten rid of the CD years ago. And Goodbye to the Machine. I knew this off the top of my head. It took me a second. So Hurt, Goodbye to the Machine is the one that's the what do they call it? The apple of my eye. It's the one that I'm trying to chase down because I've done the dance. I've done everything I think I can. And obviously the only other thing I can do is just the universe serendipitously, like what I did there, serendipitously. That's a hard one to say. If I find it out in the wild, that's really obviously the universe's way of saying it's your turn. But that's what I'm trying to track down. And I made the mistake, and I'll get off of this topic on this one. Recently, another collector buddy of mine who's been thirsting. I don't want to name him, but if you watch my videos, I've dropped it a few times. But he's been thirsting for this record I found at the Chicago Hillside show, and it was one of my grails, but it's more of his grail. And great guy, he's the best. But I've got it and he doesn't, and I think it eats at him, right?
I might know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So anyway, I was talking to him this week, and I just sent him a picture, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna double down and like expand my net and say, hey, here's the record I'm looking for this year. Can you help me out if you see it? Send him a picture, send him the listing, and within 5 minutes he replies back and he's like, yo, if and when I find this, and I will find this, get ready we're going to work out that trade for that record that we've been talking about. And I was like, son of a gun, because my man's playing chess and I'm playing checkers. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Well, I'll do you a solid in post when I put this up on my YouTube channel. I'll make up a little wanted poster. I'll put the album on there.
Do it in black and white, like the old movies, like they're missing their pet or something.
Absolutely.
Like
it'll be like,
or milk carton, like the milk carton. That'd be even better.
Yeah. All reasonable rewards will be entertained, or something.
That's right. Yeah.
I'll do you a solid, man. Maybe one of the 111 people that watch this might have it. So.
That's awesome.
So I've got one. I mean, I've got several, regrets, but this is one that got away, and this one stings the most. I have admitted many times on my channel, I take no shame in admitting that I'm a Swiftie.
Yes.
So everyone can laugh, and that's fine, and I don't really care.
The oldest male Swiftie right here, everyone.
Well, I don't know about oldest, but
one of the more mature. Like what they say about have you ever heard, side note, running races, the bigger guys who run the races, if they're like 6'4", like 250, they call them Clydesdales.
Right.
There's got to be a term for like people our age who enjoy like Taylor Swift music. Like it's right. Swiftie just seems like a disservice.
It does. I'm not like a teenage girl, but
exactly.
Right. So I'm a Taylor Swift fan. I will admit it, and that's fine. And I could take the ridicule, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Sure.
So her album Red, which came out in, I don't know when it came out, 2000 and I don't know, 14, 15, whenever the hell that came out. It was up for a slew of awards. And what her label, Big Machine, did is they did an incredibly limited press of the album on red vinyl. And I'll put a picture of this up so everyone can see it. They put a slip cover over it that was red and white, and they sent it out to all the voting members
CMA,
of the
right?
Academy of Country Music. And it was, for your ACM consideration.
ACM, okay.
So I don't know how many, there's maybe only a few hundred of these, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I bought one. I bought one off eBay, and I bought it for $90.
Ooh, steal.
The
Hamburglar, what's up?
Right? And I was excited. This was only this would have been like maybe a year later, maybe like, a year after the album came out, whatever. So
is this another eBay find?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got this thing, and it shows up at my house, and I grab the package, and I could feel my heart break the minute I didn't even need to open the package, because all this moron did was take the record and wrap it in one layer of bubble paper and some packing tape. No cardboard, no mailer, no nothing. And I just went,
been there, yeah.
Maybe it's okay. I open it up. All four corners are all dinged up and bent and whatever. And I was just like, oh my God. So I emailed the eBay seller, and it was some woman. She goes, I'll give you $10 off. And I thought about that for a nanosecond before I told her where she could put it. So I sent it back to her and got a full refund. I wish that even though it was beat up all the shit, that I would have hung on to it.
Oh, sure.
Because now, thousands of dollars.
Yes, it's very. That's how I. As soon as you're telling the story, I knew of the record. It's not something I'm chasing, but I've heard people who are chasing it.
I mean, I've seen it listed for $10,000. Not that it sells for that.
Of course.
And I don't care what it's worth. Again, I just want it for my collection.
But you had a taste. You had it in your hands.
I had it in my hand. And I say to my wife on a regular basis, I should have kept that Taylor Swift record. And she goes, yep, should have.
Well, what's that line? Experience is the greatest teacher. And I think that's true, because the next time, hopefully there's not a next time where you have a record of comparable status and comparable want that happens to, right? Because I'm assuming, so was it sealed? Like the record probably was fine, right?
The record was fine.
Okay.
It wasn't sealed, right? Because it wasn't.
Oh, it had a slip. That's right. It was a promotional.
It was a promotional slip cover on it, and And the funny thing is, when I had emailed the eBay seller and attached photos, told her about the damage.
It's like Unsolved Mysteries. You got all the evidence.
And I said, why wouldn't you at the very least put cardboard in it? She goes, well, the jacket's made out of cardboard. Isn't that enough?
Wrong record in the wrong hands. Oh, I hate that so much.
Right? Yeah. So that's the multiple $1,000 record. And again, I don't care what it's worth. It's just so damn rare. I'm never going to get another one. So,
well, I'm gonna go light one of my voodoo bags on fire tonight and send a good juju into the universe for it. But I know that one's rare. I think there's at least two other YouTube people I can think of off the top of my head that I've heard them mention that in passing. Not as vivacious a story as yours, where you literally had in your hand, but
and that's the worst part, right? It's not that I bid on it and it got away, or I saw it and didn't. I bought it. I owned it. I had it in my hand.
Tough. Therapy session will be after this conversation.
That's right.
Right. It made me think, have you ever had a record? Fortunately, knock on IKEA wood here. I haven't had this happen too much, but talking about the mail stuff when it arrives, because literally my wife she's a sport, because every time I get a record and I see the mailman just on our Nest camera in the front porch,
they're like frisbee it on
frisbee punt it. I try. I do like little YouTube shorts, just dropping a dime on them, just whatever. So every time that happens, I go down, I go get the record, and I do my Hail Marys, right? And it's more times than not, it's okay. I got to be honest. It's probably about 60% of the time. So it's higher than 50. It's higher than 40. But I've been, I guess, very fortunate in that usually it's jacket damage. Only one time have I had a record actually broke that was packed decently, right? Like it might have been a four-corner mailer or whatever. Have you ever had a record actually break in the mail? Have you ever experienced that?
No, I've thankfully, again, knock on IKEA wood, I've never had any break.
Good.
Other than that Taylor Swift record that was horribly packed, I luckily only ever had one. I mean, I've had the odd seam split. I mean, unfortunately, and your video was a good one, but unfortunately, that's the reality of what we live with when we buy records
today.
To the mail.
Yep.
I mean, unfortunately, it is what it is. I've only ever, beyond your normal seam split, I've only ever had one record received damaged. There's a band from California called Dirty Honey, and they are a awesome rock band. And
yeah, I've seen them live. They're pretty good.
Oh, lucky you!
I saw them when they first came out. They opened for Greta Van Fleet. I saw a sold out Greta Van Fleet show when Greta first broke, and Dirty Honey opened up for them.
I would rather yank all my teeth out with pliers than go see Greta Van Fleet.
Ooh, hot take. Where are my oven mitts? Oh, they're downstairs.
Yeah, man, that's.
But side note, that's how I saw them. Anyway, that's our.
I love Led Zeppelin, but I don't want to go see Greta Van Fleet because it's not the same thing. At any rate, and back on track. I discovered Dirty Honey. I don't know how, probably on YouTube.
Sure.
And I'm like, these guys are amazing. So went on their website, wanted to buy the record, and you could buy it signed or unsigned. And I'm like, well, that's a no-brainer. And it was only like $3 more or whatever. I bought the signed version. It arrives in a good quality mailer. Nothing wrong with it. But there was just a little, to the point you made in your video, there was a little too much play inside of there.
Yes.
So when I opened it up, it was seam split on all three sides. The outer jacket and the lyric inner sleeve that was in it were all split.
Naturally.
And when I took the record out, the record was scratched all to shit. And I was like, well, that kind of sucks.
Of course.
So I emailed the band, their whoever does their merch, and I took pictures again. Why not?
Thorough. Yes, sir.
And I just said, just so you're aware, this is what happened. This is how it arrived. I can appreciate a seam split or two, maybe, but I mean, these are not little seam splits. They're fairly significant
for sure.
On all sides, inner sleeve, outer sleeve. And I said, most disturbing is that the record is scratched. It plays fine, but it is very scratched. I said, is there anything? I didn't ask for anything fridge. I said, is there anything you can do for me? And within 24 hours, I got an email back going, if you'd like a replacement copy, we'll ship it to you tomorrow. There's no charge to you, and you keep the other one. And it arrived, and it was in fine condition. So that's the only damage story I've got.
I mean, consider yourself lucky, Rob, because I feel like I have to write an email at least every other week.
Wow.
No, I'm serious. But in fairness, I think it literally part of it's what I talked about in that video is the vinyl's heavier. It's the way that they load the records in the sleeves now. And when it does move, I also think, and I was thinking more of it after I did the video, if they would make either the inner sleeve a poly sleeve or some kind of more dense, yeah. If the inner sleeve splits, totally, not a big deal. Even if you buy used records from the 80s, those are split too a lot of times, right?
Yep.
But when I've had the heavier stock cardboard inner sleeves, it's almost like a second barrier, and I would be fine if those split if they were the ones who were taking that punishment, whatever. One thing I was going to talk about and prepping up for this, I just got a record, and I've ordered from this guy before. Are you familiar with NTX Vinyl, G.I. Sanders?
Absolutely, I love G.I. Sanders.
So cheap plug. Not that he needs it because the guy's got 10,000 subs or whatever, but I recently bought a record from him. He did so there's a website called thos. Have you seen this? Okay.
Yep.
So expensive record, record I've been looking for, all that kind of stuff. So I had ordered from him before on Whatnot a Pearl Jam record, and I, did my usual thing, because anytime I order something now that's open, or even if it's new, I'm asking too. I write right away. I'm like, hey, do you mind withdrawing the record in inner sleeve? It's like a form letter now at this point. And I just say, if it may already be your normal practice, but please put the record behind the outer, blah, blah, blah. GI, like, reply back, no problem. That's how I do it. Perfect. Program record, perfect, no problem. So this record, since I did it through NASDisc, I didn't have a way to contact him directly, but I'd already bought from him. So I was like, it'll probably be fun. So to his credit, this record was packed like a tank. So, like everybody knows these cardboard stiffeners, right? So here's 6 of them. Okay. The record was in 6 of them. He had taped the sides. And I've gotten records like packed like this before. Here's the line of delineation. And GI, Ryan, I know your name. I think Ryan, you can call yourself Moses for all I care. This is what blew my mind. He is apparently putting these like plastic guards, and I don't think he does this on all. I'm sure it's probably just big ticket stuff, but he literally puts these things on. I mean, indestructible. Like I was. That's why I wanted to talk about it here, because holy smokes, I was so impressed with this, because clearly he has sourced these somewhere and made it part of his practice on these, bigger ticket records. I mean, I was just blown away. I mean, one, I'm going to keep these.
Yeah.
Because clearly, I paid for the shipping. But, I mean, I just thought this was and it's folks like this and ideas like this that actually give me confidence buying, like we're talking about, $100, $200 records. Because, again, you're probably not going to find them in the wild. You got to make that choice at some point. Like, okay, I guess online it is. Yeah. And, my practice now is anytime it's over $50, I write them please open it, please, do that. If it's less than 50, I'll take the gamble. And like you said, sometimes you get them the giant seam splits, corner dings, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But my goodness, GI, NTX vinyl, like these little I was just beyond impressed, because I'm like, this is exactly. And you know what? If it's $2 more extra or whatever it is to ship, I'd pay it in a heartbeat, because then that record arrives, and the guy trying out for the Olympics, who's also working for my local post office, Discus Man, he stay in the van by the road, throw it up, buddy, because guess what? This stuff is platinum plus tough. I mean,
that's right.
So maybe he watches this video, maybe somebody tells him about it, but NTX vinyl, again, cheap plug. This is ingenious, high marks, really impressed.
I'll tag GI in the comments, make him watch it.
No, he's a good guy. I mean, yeah, and that's the thing too. Like the shops,
I wish I could buy from him, but because I'm in Canada, he doesn't ship outside of the U.S.
Yeah, it stinks for you, my friend.
It does.
Hey, I tell you what, maybe that's the business opportunity you've been needing. Maybe you can become the GI Sanders of Canada, and you can adopt this practice, and everyone will be singing your praises, saying, Rob, Northern Revolution, look at this thing. This is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I don't have that much disposable income, or, a regular full-time job that takes up far too much of my time. And a mortgage to pay, all those other things.
That's funny. So the last one I had, kind of on our topic of regrets or big wins, and this is probably, for lack of a better word, a public service announcement. Because, if you're out in the wild and you find a record, and especially the older records, and I'll just use like older Blue Note jazz records as an example. So those are made in the 60s. Anything usually made before the gas oil embargo of the 70s, usually higher quality, right? And there's been countless. So I don't have like one example. Countless records that I've purchased, or maybe didn't purchase at first, because when I looked at them, you're at the record store, record fair, you pull them out, scratch the hell, right? And you're like, oh man. And even if you've learned like to, do the finger test and see if it's just cosmetic scratch or whatever, but some of those older records are literally like beat out, because guess what? People played them. People weren't as particular as some of us collectors now, where
even close.
But like I know my mom, she would just listen to records and just stack them up on top, no sleeves, just blah.
Yep.
Not me, right?
No,
but
makes us cringe thinking about it.
First world problems, but yeah. So because people played them, people brought them to parties, party records, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, older records, it's don't judge a book by its cover, because honestly, these older records are champs. And especially if you have a good cleaning process, be it ultrasonic, be it spin clean, vacuum, however you do it, it's probably never going to be like crystal perfect, maybe a little pop crackle here. However, don't let those scratches and an abundance of scratches dissuade you from purchasing, because usually, and you can probably get those for a song. Like I have a first press of Miles Davis Kind of Blue 58. I think it's 2i mono. It was in what one of my locals calls the secret stash, which is decent records, but cosmetically they're tough, right?
Right.
And I got it for, and this is a little pricier for secret stash, but this is normally like a 80, 100, $150 record, depending on condition. I got it for like $30.
Wow.
And it was exactly what I'm talking about. Was you pull it out and Jack was, tough, but scratches all over. And I did the finger hashtag finger thing, but I felt the vinyl with my finger, make sure there wasn't any like deep cuts. Took it home, cleaned it, and it's a nice copy. So anyway, public service announcement: don't be dissuaded by seeing a lot of scratches on older records, because those things are like tanks now. Yeah, the formulation is probably different. Obviously the subject matter expertise of those people who are making them back then, and it's definitely a chemical component too. Obviously, sure. Obviously it's just like a lead paint, right? Like there's certain things that they probably put in those records back then that they probably can't put in the formulation now. But don't let the scratches dissuade you. And if anything, if your shops are like mine are, if you take it home and it doesn't play right to you, you're just not comfortable, they'll let you bring it back. And maybe they don't give you a cash refund, but they'll give you a store credit, which is, if you buy records, you'll spend that in no time. So
exactly.
That was the last thing I thought of relative to this conversation. What say you?
So, I mean, I've got many other misses, like, 6 or 8 off the top of my head. But I'm going to end on a positive note.
Let's do it.
In favor of optimism. I did a video, I don't know, several months ago. My wife collects records, doesn't have near the collection that I do. Not that mine's big. I've got 700 something records. She might have 150, something like that. But she still enjoys it for all the same reasons that I do.
Good.
But I did this video. She has this uncanny ability or luck or
superpower.
Sure. Where she'll just buy a record because she loves it and she gets it for, a cheap price.
Mm-hmm.
And they end up being absolutely ridiculously expensive. And again, and I've said it before, I don't care what a record's worth. I just think it's humorous, because I can think of 10 examples off the top of my head where she's bought a record because she loved it and she bought it for $20 or $40. And some of them are worth $300, $400, $500. And I just we laugh about it, because I'm like, do you have like a crystal ball, or are you sitting on a horseshoe, or
is she Sarah Connor from the future?
Right? So she's getting many of those, but I'm going to pick the first one just because I think it's So the movie Almost Famous, fantastic movie.
Yes.
My wife loves soundtracks. She's got tons of them. And the very first record she ever bought off eBay, which would have been like 2005, right?
Sure.
She bought the soundtrack to Almost Famous. Not the one that has Kate Hudson on the cover that everyone
the promo one
recognizes. She bought this one, of which there's only 2,500 copies of this made. Now, it looks like there's ringware on it,
but it's designed to patina. Yep.
This is actually part of the album artwork. It's meant to look old.
Excellent.
This is absolutely pristine. 2,500 copies of this in the world. She saw it on eBay when she was looking for it. And she's like, well, that cover is different. She goes, they only want $40 for it. So she bought it. Nowadays, I looked on Discogs before we came on today.
Sure.
The median historical selling price for this record is $491. And she bought it for $40 because she liked the soundtrack. And there's, like I said, there's 8 or 9 more examples just like this. And again, it's not a gamble because she's not buying it hoping it's worth more. She just buys it because she likes it. And I've got the big record collection. She's got all the expensive records. We're never selling them. They're always going to be here. But it just, in the spirit of our discussion, I just thought it was humorous that she's got this knack of finding these gold nuggets that just, yeah.
Hey, you got to keep her, Rob. That's the first thing I think. You got to keep her. And
I got to keep her for many reasons, but record collection being one of those, right?
You know, it reminds me, especially because we're talking about this during like NCAA March Madness time, right? And it's like you hear those office pools of people, you know, like betting on who wins the tournament. And I'm sure you've heard these stories, or maybe you haven't, where somebody who knows nothing, next to nothing, about, you know, it could be not just NCAA tournament, but Super Bowl or whatever.
Right.
And they pick, you know, it's the ones you least suspect. They pick the winner based on their uniform, based on you know, the team name, because if it was a dog, they used to have a dog like that. All those kind of things. That reminds me of exactly what you're talking about. It's like somebody who is so far removed from the subtle nuances of the gambling, the speculation aspect, and they just pick winner after winner after winner.
When my wife and I first started dating, and we've been together, I think like 18 years, we a couple times, just because there was nothing to do, we went to the horse races. I don't give a shit about horse racing. I know nothing about horse racing.
Sure.
We'd put down cheap bets, and we wouldn't look at the odds. We would look at the horse that had the dirtiest name. If it was a dirty name, we were picking them to be the winner. And a few times it worked out, you know. So
amazing.
There you go.
Good stuff.
There you go. Well, thank you for joining me, man. This was
of course. Well, you've been on so much of my stuff, as the least I could do. I think it was my turn to repay the favor, because how many live streams have I done where you just popped on because I was talking to myself? So you've done.
I love doing those live streams, man. They're a lot of fun. It's just kind of a free flow discussion of you know, whatever. But I really liked the last one when you were talking about regrets, and because we all have them, right? There's always the ones that got away, and there was just so many more that I had in my head, and I decided let's have a part 2 to this conversation and just see where it goes. So,
great idea, sir.
All right, man. Thanks for joining me. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Check out Concert Buddy's channel. I will leave a link in the description, and there we go.
There we go. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having me,
everybody.